So I call this session Putting Your Faith into Action, also known as Put Up or Shut Up. The story of Enrique Borjas. My premise to this whole thing is I have a strong personal feeling, some may call it a prejudice, about immigrants that come to the USA. For immigrants that come here and do not learn our language, it bothers me, it upsets me. It bothers me in two specific ways. If you have chosen to come to the USA where the language spoken is English, you are not forced to come. You chose to come. So learn the language. It's not that difficult. Learn our customs. It's not that difficult. Yes, of course, bring your traditions and customs with you, but learn to use them as well as ours. Matriculate, it's called. Matriculate. Second, it is what I call the language of commerce. If you want to have a job, if you want to do business in America, you have to speak English. Okay? I did not have to learn your language. I did not move to your country. Learn English. Get a job. Enjoy this great country. There's a lot to offer. So having said that, I found myself sitting at Mass one day, on Sunday. I opened up the church bulletin to read what was going on. There was a paragraph at a local Hispanic church called Mission San Juan Diego was asking for volunteers to help in their ESL programs, English as a Second Language, ESL. It was almost as if Jesus was sitting next to me and said, "Okay, big mouth, you want people to learn English? Step up and help them." Honestly, that's what I heard in my ears. So I said, "Okay, I'll try and put my money where my mouth is. I'll shut up." A week later, I showed up at Mission San Juan Diego for the ESL class introduction. To add a little credibility to the process, I thought it would be an interesting experiment for me to show up an hour early because they had a Catholic Mass prior to this meeting. The Mass, however, was all in Spanish. So this would give me a feel for what it would be like for someone to hear people talk but not understand a word they were saying. What an experience it was. It was very interesting. So I went to the ESL meeting and not being able to speak a word of Spanish, but wanted to see if I could help somebody to make a difference. I was introduced to a young man named Enrique Borjas. He was from a small town in central Mexico. Enrique was about 25. He had come to the U.S. illegally. He had swam across the Rio Grande River and told me his story about sneaking in, evading the police, and eventually joining his brother here in Chicago. He was married, however, to a U.S. citizen, and they were expecting their first child. He was a nice man. He just seemed like a nice gentleman that was trying to do better. Fortunately, he was in the program for a while and matriculated to where he spoke un poco, a little English. And now he was advancing to where a tutor would help him learn even more. So I bought an English-Spanish dictionary to help me understand him. We were put together. In a few months, we would meet once a week, and I would help him learn words to make sentences. So he was working at the time 2 part-time jobs to support himself and his wife. He was very smart, very anxious to learn, very appreciative. I so admired that in him, which made me all the more anxious to help him. He wanted me to talk more than instruct. He was very good at listening and picking up my words. I spoke better then than I do now. And the inflection and how I use the words. I would talk, and as I watched his expression, I could pick up when he did not understand or when he was questioning. So we got to learn each other very well. When I saw his reaction, I would stop and I would explain that word and even go as to write them down on a piece of paper. And is so true in life. I learned that when you give freely of yourself, quite often you get so much more in return. It was so rewarding to spend time to watch him grow, to watch him learn, to watch him want to learn. As the weeks went by, the church closed the ESL program because of a lack of volunteers, I'm sorry to say. Enrique and I were doing so well, and I wanted to get him to where he could matriculate well in this country. We decided to continue our sessions at the local library. Now, we would work this one or sometimes two jobs. So he'd go home. He would work his two jobs, one or two. He would go home, clean up, eat, and meet me for 2 hours at the library to learn more English. That's what I call commitment. He wanted, and that motivated me. How could I not continue? How could I stop? He was learning, we were talking, and we were bonding in a great relationship. He missed seeing his mother and father, and I became like a surrogate father to him. Because he was illegal, he could not go back and forth to Mexico to see his parents. If he went back, he'd have to swim across the river to get in and take his chances. So he couldn't even go back to see his mom and dad, who he loved a lot. He realized that he would need a green card to get back in after he went home. Now working his third job to earn enough money to get the card, it involved an attorney, fees. He had to require him to go back to Mexico and stay there for a short time to get his card from the U.S. Embassy. He had saved up $5,000 working 3 jobs, and that's what it would take to get the process begun. The lawyer he used took his money and sent him back to Mexico to apply. They told him it would take about 4 to 6 weeks. He left and waited and waited and waited almost 8 months. I had kept in contact with him all that time by phone. Finally, he called and asked for my help if I might know of a different attorney. I searched and found one through the Catholic Church. His wife, Enrique's wife Sylvia, and the now new baby and I went to see the attorney. They said they could get him home in less than 4 weeks. He got his green card and returned. Now, it cost him a lot more money, but he was going to work to pay that off. Now he could go back and forth to see his parents and his sister. We continued to meet because he wanted to learn and grow more. He called me one week and said he could not meet with me as his mother had taken ill, and he was going to go back to Mexico to see her. 2 weeks later, he called from Mexico and said his mother was seriously ill in the hospital and needed special medication to try and keep her alive. Unfortunately, the hospital situation, the medical situation in Mexico is much different than it is here in the U.S. So she had to pay to get the medicine, or he asked if he could borrow $1,000 to buy the medication and assured me upon his return he would pay me back. Now, admittedly, I had second thoughts, but I trusted Enrique. I trusted his word. He was that kind of a man. So, this tears me up when I tell this story, but I sent him the money. He bought the medicine, but eventually his mother passed away. He came back home and we continued meeting, learning more. But each week, when we would meet, he would give me in cash $50 or $100 to start to pay me back for that $1,000. That says something about who he was. That was a young man with integrity. His next goal, that's that he didn't have goals and he didn't want to improve. His next goal was to get his CDL, Commercial Driver's License. It required he should make more money on the job he was at, so he needed this. If he could get the truck driver's license and pass the test, he would make more money. He took the test. We studied for about 1.5 years. He took the test. I questioned him. He took the test and passed. Another great accomplishment. Then the best part. He said to me, one of our meetings, he said he loved being in America, and he wanted to become a citizen, and asked if I would help him pass the test. I could not have been prouder. I researched what I needed to know and what it took to pass the citizenship test. I got flashcards that we would go through when we meet, and I asked him a question, he'd give me the answer. Test materials, and for a year and a half, we studied and studied and studied, and I learned some things I didn't know too. He knew the questions, and he knew all the answers. It was fun. I have to tell him also the background on a lot of these questions. Who was George Washington, and why did he do this, and what was the Battle of this? So fortunately, I knew some of the historical backgrounds to these questions, and I gave him a total view of being an American. He learned a lot about his new land. We learned things that I had forgotten. Ultimately, he took the test, and today he is a U.S. citizen. During that time, he invited me to the baptism of both his daughters. He has 2 little girls, where he had to meet much of his family and his wife's family. And as I like to tease, I was the only one non-Spanish person at the events. I was honored. I was the gringo, as some of the Americans used to be called. During the time, he got a very good job as a tree trimmer, working for a subcontractor to the Commonwealth Edison. Incidentally, my father was a tree trimmer who worked for Commonwealth Edison. How about that, huh? He had a second little girl and bought his first house and a second house during this time. We still get together, not quite as often, because now he's a father and a worker and a husband, and he has responsibilities. We are friends forever, real friends. And I'm proud to say that works. So bottom line, yeah, God does work in mysterious ways. He put Enrique and I in the right spots at the right time. We bonded, we worked together, and learned so much from each other to add to our lives. I'm proud to say that he is a good friend and an American citizen and a fine husband, a fine father. I'm blessed. Another blessing. But then came what I call that damn cancer. It was the fall of 2015. Everything was going along well. I was feeling fine, exercising, working, building the business, blah, 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 living the dream. I started to feel a little tingling in my tongue one day. Nothing major, rather slight. But as the days went on, I felt it more and more often. And then there came a numbness on one side of my tongue. I knew this was not normal, of course. I figured it would give it a short time and it would go away. I'm not one to jump into the doctor's offices. So, before I responded, well, it didn't go away. And after about 3 weeks, I went to see my regular doctor, my PCP, as it's called, personal care physician. He checked it out. I had no idea. So he sent me to see my dentist. I went to see my dentist. He ran a simple test and confirmed he also did not know what it was. So he then sent me to an orthodontist who conducted a rather extensive test. Couldn't figure it out either, but it was still there. So he now sent me to a very knowledgeable ear, nose, and throat doctor, ENT they're called. He ran extensive tests, and he could not confirm the diagnosis. He brought in a couple of his associates. They didn't know. So he suggested I should have 2 different surgeries to find out what's going on and get an idea of what's happening. By now, I was getting pretty nervous, and very frankly, I was scared, because he did use the C word, cancer. I told the doctor I would seek a second opinion. Didn't mean to offend him, but I wanted to find what someone else might think. He thought that was a good idea, actually. And he asked if I had any doctors that I had in mind. I said no. So he suggested I go see what he called the best ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor in the state, in the whole area. So he gave me the name of Dr. Kirsten Stenson down at Rush University Hospital down in the city of Chicago. He said I should call her and meet with her and see what she had to say. I called her. She said to come in right away. She wanted to see me. She gave me an appointment, and when I showed up, there were lots of questions. She ran tests, all kinds of tests, answered all kinds of questions, and she confirmed I had cancer, a very aggressive form of cancer. Needless to say, my world came crashing down. Right then and there, I thought it was over. I was petrified. I'd never been that scared in my life. Even when I was told I was going to Vietnam, I was not that scared. I thought for sure I was going to die. When you hear the cancer word, what else do you expect? But Dr. Stenson, in her very loving, caring way, assured me that we had discovered this early, and if it had not spread, she would perform surgery and get it all. She was very familiar with it. She called it adenoid cystic carcinoma. She set the surgery for oddly enough, Friday, the 13th of November, 2015. Yeah, Friday the 13th. It took 7.5 hours, but Dr. Stenson met with Judy after the surgery and confirmed that she got it all. She was very assured. But to make sure, she prescribed 30 radiation treatments to start once I got back on my feet and built up a little strength. I had lost about 25 pounds through this whole thing. So, I felt better. I felt that I was in the best hands, and the good Lord had given me the best doctor in the world. I think she did. I started those treatments in January of 2016. They made a large mask that fit over my face and my head, basically covered me, for radiation. I was a bit claustrophobic, so that took a spark out of me, but boom, it was right on my face. I finished my treatments in March 2016. After they put me, this mask was on me as they put me in the radiation machine. I could not move my head, so it had to be the same place all the time. The various doctors and radiologists made me aware that because of the surgery and radiation treatments, there could be various complications to this whole thing. It was possible that I would require a tube in my stomach to eat because I couldn't eat anymore. I would lose my speech or part of it. I would lose my taste or part of it. Lucky for me, all of those possibilities, the worst that could happen was that I lost my speech, some of my speech, as you can tell, and my taste. Yes, things taste very different to me right now. There is no taste, there is nothing in this side of my mouth, my tongue. Things taste different. For instance, I used to enjoy a nice glass of Cabernet wine. If I take a taste of it today, it tastes like vinegar. But in spite of that, I can eat, I can talk, I can walk, I can do all kinds of things. Thank God. Through therapy, I have most of my speech. I am understood for the most part, except when I get real excited, then the words come out like word salad. No big deal. I get over it. I did lose some of my taste, and I'm not really capable of eating steak or pork chops anymore, which I used to love. As I say, the wine tastes funny, but I found other wines that will work. I never liked the taste of pepper or anything. Now, it's very good. I enjoy some spices, which I never enjoyed before. So some of the old favorites are gone, and some of the new ones are here. It's all good, and I am here, and I'm lucky. It was a bit challenging, but I survived, and with my trust in God, the tremendous support of my family, my wife, my children, my grandchildren, my real friends, my brother, my sister-in-law. It all worked out. All, as of this writing, as it's been a little over 9 years, I'm cancer-free. I am truly blessed. And once again, I truly believe that God has left me here for a reason. He needs me to do something more before he calls me home. No, I just need to, once again, shut up and listen and to hear the mission that he has for me.